Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by the Smart Investor Singapore. I'm Brian Fernandez, and with me today is Lee Kian Soon, CEO of Astral Asset Management, coming out of Singapore. Kian Soon, great to have you on the show.
Good afternoon.
Now, Kian Soon, before we get your insights, we're going to take a look at how crypto markets have performed, and they are performing quite nicely, as well as regional stock markets. We start with Bitcoin, which is at 18,856. It's up 3.51%. Ethereum is at 1,411. It's up 0.54%. Looking across to regional stock markets, we start with the SGX. That's up 0.25%. Then we have, and let me set that, Bursa Malaysia, which is up 0.27%. Shanghai is up 0.6%. ASX All Ordinaries is up 0.66%. The Nikkei is down 0.12%. The Hang Seng is up 0.21%. And rounding up the numbers, we've got the Kospi, which is up 0.89%. Mostly green. Kian Soon, tell us why.
I guess it's a very good day for the market with the positive handover from US market last evening. When the CPI numbers was released, it was within expectations. Investors and the markets felt that inflation could be under control finally, and therefore interest rate hikes might not be so staggering in the coming months. And as a result, you've seen a fourth day of green for US markets for the week, and I think we are seeing the positive handover in Asia today.
Now, Kian Soon, one of the key things that markets have been looking out for, obviously, was the inflation data. What does that really signal markets?
I guess the markets are watching closely for any signs of whether the inflation is under control, given that, for the last 12 months, Fed has increased interest rates multiple times at staggering amounts. And the market is looking for signals or signs that, this inflation is finally under control. So going forward, I think, we will continue to monitor the situation and continue to look for signs because December is sometimes a weird month given the Christmas shopping, given the big consumptions as well as, sometimes you have fantastic sales. So that affects CPI numbers. And I think January will give us a better clarity on what is the trend of the inflation going forward.
Now, Kian Soon, the thing that we need to address is obviously the whole China reopening story. Now, way back in November, you called it correctly on our show when you said it's not a question of if China is going to be reopening, it is only a question of when and how. What's your view in January the 13th, 2023? What's your view on the China reopening story right now?
I think for the reopening, there were a lot of concerns recently about, the fact that, the hospitals are packed, there are many deaths, the cases are soaring, so on and so forth. But the question I ask is, isn't that the same for the rest of the world when, we reopen 12 months or 13 months back? And some are faster, some are slower, but more or less, I think the rest of the world has, lived with COVID like the norm. And I don't think China, will actually move back to its COVID zero policy. It's a path of no return. I think the rationale is simple, right? How is locking yourself up, in a COVID zero environment going to be beneficial for the whole country, as well as your economy? And given that you have reopened and they have taken their first steps, I think they will march on and we'll see better developments, hopefully, for the country in 3 to 6 months' time.
Then what sectors are going to be benefiting from this reopening within China itself?
As we can see, right, the Hang Seng actually rallied more than 35% in the last few months. There was a lot of excitement. But if I look at the sectors that are going to benefit, there are a couple of phases. Phase one, the immediate sectors that will benefit is the domestic tourism, domestic travel, F&B, because it has been a long time since they actually catch up with their family members. They actually travel intercities, to meet up with business associates, friends, go for a drink, go for a big banquet, So all these sectors will be the immediate beneficiary. There are a lot of discussions about international tourism, the concerns that, the Chinese tourists is going to bring, the virus as well as other problems to each country. I think it's going to be a second step. It's not going to be so fast that, first of all, flights needs to resume between the Chinese cities and, international nations. Secondly, visas need to be granted, passports need to be renewed. And obviously, the airfare has not actually come down. So it's not going to attract mass tourism for the time being. But you know what? In the next 3 to 6 months, probably the first May holiday, I think that is the period when the first international group of Chinese tourists is going to come out and benefits the Southeast Asian nations who are very tourist dependent, for instance, and they will see the first big mass group of Chinese tourists. And by then, most of them would have COVID. A lot of concerns that were raised currently would, no longer apply. Like, the rest of the world, travel and tourism has more or less resumed to the norm. And then finally, right, in the final phase, right, we're going to see the luxury consumption actually taking up. These are the fact that, people are not buying watches, people are not buying gold bracelets, jewelry, they're not going back to the beauty salons for a long time, right? These are what I call the luxury consumptions, the beauty salons, the spas, the entertainment joints. So all these will actually come back in the second half of 2023 because these sectors, will benefit only when, life has come to the norm for most Chinese, where they felt more comfortable hanging out, where they felt more comfortable spending money. And not to forget, right, for the past 3 years, Chinese being staunch savers, they never have much opportunity to spend. So you're going to see that revenge consumption story happening.
Now, Kian Soon, we've spoken to lots of analysts around the world, but you've really broken down this China reopening story and the key benefits. Thanks for your insights. And once again, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, most welcome.
Now, we've been speaking to Lee Kian Soon, CEO of Astral Asset Management, coming out of Singapore on BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by the Smart Investor Singapore. I'm Brian Fernandez. This show will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.